What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the MotoSouth Garage. Today I'm excited to share with you an install demonstration of the Annitori Quickshifter Pro. I just returned from doing a test ride on this thing for the first time, and I can easily say this is one of my favorite mods. I'm going to show you the installation on my 2017 FZ, but keep in mind that it's going to be the same for all year models of the FZ and MT09 versions. As a matter of fact, the installation will be pretty much the same for all of the bikes that this Quickshifter is available for. I'll also share with you a discount code that you can use to save a few dollars if you're looking to purchase one for yourself. So let's go back and I'll show you how it's done, and I'll take you along for a ride. Okay, so let's go over the tools that you're going to need to complete this installation. And those tools are pretty basic. You're going to need a few Allen wrenches, a couple of metric wrenches, something to depress the body pins when you're removing some of these body panels, a pair of pliers, and some zip ties to secure the wires. And you're also going to need your cell phone with the Annitori app on it, and you can get that in either Android or iOS. Now, this installation will apply to any year of the Yamaha FZ or MT09 from 2014 to current. They make this Quickshifter for just about any modern sport bike. If you'd like to get one for yourself, I have a coupon code on the screen, also down in the description. You can go to vcyclenut.com and get one for yourself. All right, so our first step here is going to be to remove the seat. Next, we want to remove this cover on the front of the fuel tank. There's going to be 4 plastic pins that hold these in. There's 2 here at the top and 2 on the front. And to release those, you press in on the center of the pin. And now we're ready to remove this panel. And since I have a USB hook to mine, I'm just going to hang it over the front of the handlebar so that it's out of the way. Okay, now next step is going to be to remove the 2 side covers. You have 1 Allen bolt on this side, and you have 2 more of those push pins on the inside. And this is going to be a 4mm Allen bolt. Okay, and once you have that removed, snap right off, just like that. There's 1 grommet on the inside of here that holds it in there once you remove the 3 fasteners. Now the other side is going to be the same process. So next we need to remove the fuel tank. We have 4 bolts holding that on. There's 2 right here at the bottom, and then 1 on each side of the tank. In order to remove the tank, there's some lines and an electrical plug on the underneath that we have to access. Take a couple of rags and put them underneath the tank right here. It just kind of gives you a little extra insurance so that you don't scratch anything up. You do the same thing on both sides. On the underside of here, we have 2 vent lines, a fuel line, and an electrical line that has to be accessed. I'm going to take a small block of wood just to put underneath here to elevate it so that I can get underneath it easily. Just going to slide that under here to hold it up. Okay, you can see underneath here, that is the electrical plug, that's the fuel line, and these 2 gray hoses are the 2 vent hoses that we need to remove. All right, and these 2 small clips can be removed by hand. Now, you may get a little bit of fuel come out also when you undo these lines. If this is the first time that you've pulled them off, they can be a little stubborn, but basically they just pull right off. Now the electrical connector has a small tab to press in, if you can see it. Now we'll need a little flathead screwdriver to release the mechanism on the fuel line. Okay, we can now pull this block of wood out. And next we can remove the fuel tank. Just be careful not to knock the handlebars when you do so. Just pull it straight up, slide it back, and then set it somewhere where it won't be damaged. Now these 2 rubber protectors on the front of the tank, they just come right off when you remove the tank, but I probably should have slid that off beforehand. Okay, so next we want to remove the air box. This is also very simple. There's 3 bolts, 1 on each side, 1 here on the top, and then you also have to loosen up the 3 clamps that hold the air boots onto the throttle bodies, and then we slide the ECU out and everything comes right off. There's going to be 2 hoses as well on the underneath that we have to detach once we get it out. we can start with this ECU. There's just 2 plastic tabs that hold it on, and it'll actually slide out. Just have to kind of guide the wires out of the keepers here and set it to the side. Now we're going to need a 5mm Allen to remove these 3 bolts. Okay, we can go back to our 4mm Allen and loosen up these 3 band clamps. You don't have to remove the bolt completely, just back it off until there's very little thread showing on the other side. Okay, that should do it. So now what we'll do is take a pair of pliers and loosen up the clamp that holds this vent hose on. Once we do that, we can lift the air box off the throttle bodies and the line will come right off. On the underside, we have a second hose that we need to remove. Now we can remove the air box. All right, now one thing I like to do, since the throttle bodies are open right now, is take some clean rags and just kind of stuff them into there. That just keeps you from dropping anything into them. The butterflies are closed, so likely nothing would go any further, but even dirt or dust, if the bike is dirty, can get inside of there, and that's not a good thing. Okay, so now we can go ahead and start the install of the wire harness for the Quickshifter. Now on the Quickshifter harness, you'll notice there are 3 sets of plugs, and on the other end is the single plug. This is going to be the one that's going to attach to the controller. So it doesn't matter if you start from left to right or right to left. All 3 of these plugs are going to do the same thing. But I'm going to go from left to right just so that I can run all my wiring on the right side frame rail. All right, so we look for the 3 spark plug caps. That's one right here, a second one here, and then the third one right there. Basically, we'll just unplug the spark plug wires and put the harness in line and plug the wires back into the harness. So really simple. There's going to be a little tab on top of it that you'll press to unplug it, just like that. We'll do the same for all 3. They are a little bit tricky to get to this last one on the inside because it goes the opposite way. Right there. Okay, now we get the harness. I realize this might be a little bit difficult to see. All right, so we'll unplug the first one, we'll plug it into the harness like that, and then this is going to plug right back in to where we removed the spark plug wire, just like that. All right, now we'll go to the second one, plug it into the harness, plug it back onto the spark plug, and now we do the third one. Just make sure that we get underneath this vent tube. All right, now we'll just make sure that we tuck all of our wires, and we'll take the wire that's going to connect to our module, and I'm going to zip tie it to this wire harness here on the frame rail, and then we'll plug in the harness and set it in the storage tray. And a word of advice here, don't tie anything up too tightly because you don't want the vibrations of the engine to cause chafing on these wires. So what I'm going to do now is I put the module into the storage box on the back behind the battery. We'll run the wire along the side frame rail, following the factory wiring on the bike until we get to the plug that we just hooked up on the harness, and then we'll tie it in and zip tie the wires down to the side, and then we'll be ready to install the sensor on the shift rod. All right, so next we're going to remove the linkage. And I have aftermarket rear sets, but the process is still going to be the same. I'm going to remove this from both rose joints, top and bottom. We're going to put in the new linkage, add in the sensor, and then we're going to route the wire up to the control box under the seat. And keep in mind that one end is going to be a left-handed thread. Okay, now we can put in the new linkage. So I put everything together just to show you how it's supposed to look. I didn't put my rubber boots back on. I'll do that after. Just wanted to give you a good visual of what it's supposed to look like. So the wire on the sensor can come out of the top or bottom. It doesn't really matter which way you orient it. You just want it to kind of follow the route of your wiring. And since my wiring is going to go up the top, I opted to route it in that direction. You want to make sure also that the rose joints can move in either direction and they're not in a bind when everything is tightened down. That's very important because if it is in a bind, it can cause false triggers on the sensor. So you just want to make sure that everything is straight and in line. Once it's all tightened down, you still have that easy movement side to side on the rose joints. Also, the angles as close to 90 degrees as possible on the linkage at the top and as well as on the bottom. Just as close as you can get it is best for the sensor. So now we'll go ahead and route these wires up to the control box. Leave plenty enough slack and zip tie it to these vent lines. Make sure nothing is in a bind. All right, so you can see I ran the wire up the frame rail. I'm going to tie it to this wire harness here to go across and then follow the other wire that we put. Just go all the way back until we get the plug here, and we'll plug it into the control box. Then we'll be ready to power it up. So before we go any further, we'll go ahead and reinstall our intake and fuel tank. Just carefully remove these rags, make sure that nothing is on them that could fall into the throttle bodies. All right, and we'll get our air box. The first thing you want to do is put this tube down at the bottom and reattach it. Once we have our two hoses back on the bottom, we just put the boots back onto the throttle bodies and tighten up the 3 clamps. We can now go ahead and put the ECU back into its location. Just slide it right back in. Tuck the wires into the little slot. All right, and we're ready to bolt that on. Okay, we can now reinstall the fuel tank. We'll go ahead and set our rags up just for protection once again. And block it up again. And now we can make our connections underneath. Okay, we can now replace our side covers. Okay, so now we can go ahead and attach the shifter to the module here. And then lastly, we need to run power wire and negative to the battery. Before I hook the power wire, I'm going to go ahead and secure all the loose wires, make sure we have everything ready to go. And then lastly, we'll remove the positive cable. Put that right back in. Okay. That does it for the installation. Have all the wires tied up nice and neat. Everything is out of the way. Before I attach the module itself to the tool tray, I just wanted to show you the status light on the bottom of it. When I turn on the key, you see the light's going to blink. It should blink slowly green, showing that everything is correct as far as the connections, just like that. Okay, so we're going to attach that down with some tape. That should do it. We can now set up the Annitori app and make sure all of our settings are correct before we do the driveway test. All right, so now I'm going to go over some of the basic settings on the app. I'm not going to go over detail about how to connect to the module because that's going to be different between Android and Apple. I have an Apple device, and basically I'm just going to scan until I see my Quickshifter come up and connect to it. And when I do that, you're going to click the read button, and that is going to show you the current settings. It'll show you the device, the Quickshifter Pro 2, show you a status, a firmware version. Then you have a push and a pull toggle, which is very important. You want to make sure that you have the correct one switched on. In our case, we are pushing on the sensor. As you can see, when I upshift, the sensor is being pushed. So you want the push turned on and the pull turned off. If it were the opposite way, if you were pulling on the sensor to upshift, then it would be the exact opposite. You won't have a situation where both of them are on because it is not an auto blipper, and killing the spark on a downshift does nothing for you. Okay, then you have a few things that can be adjusted here: sensitivity, kill time, RFX, dwell, and filter. So on the sensitivity, the higher the number, the more sensitive the sensor is. The lower the number, the less sensitive it is. 60 is the standard number, and I'm going to leave it at that. The next one is the kill time, and it's measured in milliseconds, and it's the duration of time that it kills spark to the spark plugs when the sensor is activated. That one is a standard setting of 55, and I'm going to leave it at that. The next one is the RFX number. The RFX number is basically an algorithm that's set by Annitori. This number will normally not be changed unless Annitori tells you to. So in the event that you have an issue and had to contact them, they may ask you to change that to a different algorithm to deal with various issues that could arise, such as older bikes with older electrical systems. And the next one is the dwell, and the dwell is the amount of time, and again measured in milliseconds, that the sensor basically deactivates after an upshift. So it doesn't have a false trigger thinking that you're going to another gear too quickly. And that can again be adjusted by just tapping on it and adjusting the number. I'm going to leave that at the standard 300 as well. And then the last one, the filter, is a software. That's again something that won't be adjusted unless you're told to by Annitori. Now just remember that once you make your changes, you tap that upload button so that it saves it to the module. So all in all, extremely simple to do and very easy to adjust. So looks like everything is set up. We have a good connection. We have all of our settings correct, so we're ready to do the driveway test. Okay, before we go out on the road, we're going to do something called the driveway test. And basically, you're just going to start the bike with the clutch in. You're going to put it up in the 6th gear. Do not release the clutch. Just hold the clutch in the entire time. Rev the bike to about 5,000 RPMs and go like you're going to shift to a 7th gear. And you should hear the engine just cut or pop briefly. If it's doing that, then the Quickshifter is doing its job. Alright, so I got it in 6th gear. I'm going to hold it about 5,000 RPMs. So definitely it's cutting out like it should. So we're ready to take it out on the road. So you can give it a try. So yeah, you don't need a Quickshifter, but you want a Quickshifter. Yeah. recommend this over the OEM shifter because you have a lot more, well, you have adjustability, which you don't have with the OEM. You also have the customer support that Annitori provides. I highly recommend this to anyone thinking about it. Go to vcyclenut.com, put in that code, and get yourself a Quickshifter. Easy to install and a whole lot of fun. So I think that's going to be it for today, guys. I'm going to romp around a little bit more with this thing. If you found any use out of this video, please hit that like button. Feel free to leave some comments if you have any questions or anything. We have a lot more things planned in the future, a couple more videos coming out. So hope everybody's staying safe with all this virus stuff going on, and until next time, take care.